Hi, my name is Larry Miller, and today I want to talk to you about shrink control and the vital role of inventory control in preventing shrink in your stores. You know, I've been in retail for over 40 years, and during that time, I've trained literally thousands of store managers in how to prevent shrink in their stores and optimize profit. But today we're going to focus very tightly on inventory control and the 7 steps along the inventory control process. And then we're going to talk about the 5 things that every store operator must do in order to make money, reduce shrink, and optimize cash flow in their stores as it relates to inventory control. So let's take a minute, let's go over to the whiteboard, we'll talk a little bit more about inventory control and how you can profit from it. So here we are at the whiteboard. We're going to talk today about the vital role of inventory control. Again, my name is Larry Miller. I'm the president of the Retail Control Group in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we've trained literally thousands of store managers at hundreds of companies over the last 40 years in the best practices associated with shrink control, customer service excellence, and how to make more money in a supermarket or convenience store. So let's go. We're going to talk a little bit about the vital role of inventory control and what you can do to improve your operations. Today, research indicates that shrink is caused by a variety of sources and lands at about 2.70% of retail sales. That's a huge number compared to the bottom line profit that most companies make. But when we look into shrink a little bit deeper, it's caused by many sources, starting with shoplifting and employee theft, operational breakdowns in best practices, and what we know for sure is that there's actually 9 core causes of operational shrink. Those 9 core causes are illustrated in this pie chart. We're not going to delve too deeply into them today, but they are something that each and every one of us needs to know and focus on every single day. Our job is to study shrink, to learn it, and understand the causes and cures of it so that we can minimize it. With that said, it doesn't matter whether we're talking shrink in perishables or shrink in non-perishables. Shrink exists and occurs in the supermarket for a variety of reasons. Today, once again, we're going to focus on inventory control and how getting it in, getting it out, and getting it sold is the key to profit making and shrink minimization. Let's take a look at the inventory control chart. You can see that there are 7 steps along the way of inventory control management where we need to focus on. Now, money starts in the bank. We have money in the bank, we're going to use that money to buy goods, price goods, and then order goods. And in that one category alone, ordering of goods for sale, we can lose up to 22% of shrink. That's a huge number. So ordering becomes a focal point that we have to be sure is right on target every single day in every single store. It's the beginning rung of the inventory control ladder. We then move on to receiving goods. We all know that we can receive goods at the back door or the front door. We encourage the back door. And we know that we can lose money there through vendor theft, vendor errors, receiver theft, receiver errors, or collusion between the 2 parties involved. We can lose up to 6% of shrink on average if we're not managing and controlling our inventory receiving processes. The next step along the way is inventory handling and storage. Here, if inventory isn't put on refrigeration or in the freezer or placed in the proper staging area in our back rooms, we can lose up to 14% of shrink in that area of the inventory control step-by-step flow. So it's important that we have inventory handling and storage practices that are well-defined and executed with discipline. The next step along the way is production planning, and production planning is often considered a problem in perishables. And while we specialize in perishable shrink control best practices, production planning takes place in grocery, HBC, GM, and all the perishable departments. It's a store-wide discussion, but not often considered such. The big problem with that is that you can lose up to 17% of shrink in production planning inefficiencies. So it's really vital that we focus on production planning, how the product gets in the back door, and once in, what happens with it between then and the time that the customer buys it. All of those steps along the way involve storage, handling, and production planning, and space allocation, both on your grocery shelf, in your produce department, in your deli, in your dairy, in your meat case. Doesn't matter where. It occurs under those three scenarios of get it in, receiving, produce it and handle it, storage, handling, and production planning, before we get to display allocation and actually displaying it for sale. And when we display it for sale, inefficient display space allocation can result in an additional 7% of store shrink. Now, people think that production planning would be much, much more than 7%. But the fact is, production planning is oftentimes a result of we ordered too much, we had too much in storage, we produced too much trying to force the sale, and display space allocation oftentimes we find in our research and our store experience is a result of the preceding three breakdowns. So then we get display space allocation by itself and standalone, it's 7% of all shrink in your store. The final critical step along the way is whether or not we have good control at the point of sale. We call that mostly cashier performance monitoring. Are we monitoring every single transaction? Do we know the abnormalities that we're looking for that signal shrink via theft versus shrink via inefficiency or error? A proper cashier performance monitoring system and best practice guidelines at the front end for cashier behavior and point of sale management can result in either 9% more shrink or 9% less shrink than you would need if you were trying to optimize your shrink loss. So there's the 5 primary steps, or the 6 primary steps, and then we return with that to profit going back to the bank. We start at the bank, we go through the process, we wind up at the bank with sales and profit. I hope this little story gave you a sense of how the flow of inventory control dramatically affects your profitability. But there are indeed 5 critical things that you need to be doing, every operator needs to be doing in order to control shrink. We have to focus first on inventory turns. I said that before. Get it in, get it out, get it sold. No excess inventory in the back room. So when you walk into your back rooms and you see excess inventory, or you see disorganization, or you see clutter, you're looking right into the heart of what's causing your initial and most shrink. Secondly, we have to make sure our storage and handling tactical standards are in place and our best practices are in place so that, again, I'm going to repeat it, we get it in, we store it and handle it, we get it out, we get it sold at the correct price. Organization and conditions matter. So when you look at your back rooms, you look at your coolers, you look at your freezers, you look at the areas of your store, it is most important that you see, feel, and experience neatness, organization, and optimal stock levels in your back room just to support business, not excessive inventory. We need to make sure number 4 is in place, and that is our receiving controls and standards. So if your receiving controls are in standards, at least you know you're getting what you're paying for. And finally, I'm a strict and stern believer in known loss control insights. I find that known loss control, that is tracking every bit of shrink you can see and measure every day in every department uniquely, serves as your portal into your profit or your portal into your shrink loss. We can use that forensically to backtrack into the cause and effect of your shrink, your margin loss, your profit, and in a lot of cases, your sales. So I really do hope that this overall chart made sense to you and you can understand how the flow works, and my explanation served to make it a little easier for you to communicate. This chart that you're looking at here is available up on our website. If you care to look at it, you care to buy it, it's up to you. I don't care. Take a picture of it right here if you want, but understand it is the most important thing. My name is Larry Miller. I want to thank you for today. I want to thank you for taking the 7 or 8 minutes to listen to this session today. And if I can ever be of service to you, well, there's my number, there's my email. Reach out and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Have a great day.